Here comes a maniac with mega sound. Here's your look at the Mezco Toyz, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, MDS, Leatherface. In the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a group must do everything they can to escape the chainsaw-wielding Leatherface, who wears a mask made of human skin. Depress the button discreetly hidden on Leatherface's back to hear the revving of his infamous chainsaw with and without a blood-curdling scream, and the sound of the camera from the opening scene of the movie. Gentlemen, start your screaming. But before we actually start screaming, the first thing we're going to want to do is just figure out how tall the MDS Leatherface is. I'm going to take this tape measure of mine and put it right to the very top of his head, as we always do at the beginning of these reviews. I'm going to move it across, just so I'm not hitting anything along the ways, and we're going to stop it right there. MDS Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I don't know why I'd say it like that, stands 15.4, is about 15.5 inches in height. We can switch that over to centimeters, revealing that the figure is 39.2 centimeters tall. Without the included accessory, the name of the movie would just be Texas Massacre, and would kind of leave everybody guessing what exactly caused the massacre to happen. Thank goodness, Mezco Toyz does include his trusty chainsaw. A slightly smaller little squatter, but a nice chainsaw nonetheless. It's done here in yellow with some additional wash of black that's been added to the side, and even some nice little silver scratches in there as well. The actual teeth portion of the chainsaw, the thing that does the hacking and slashing, actually has some nice dirt and grime on it as well. Sadly, no blood. Blood certainly would have been nice and appreciated if they could have included that onto the chainsaw, but other than that, I mean, it's a nice looking chainsaw. It's just a little on the squat side. Now, fitting this into his hand, one thing about the MDS figures, if you've been collecting like the Chuckies, for example, the builds are pretty much going to be the same, as well as the hands are very much similar to one another. So when it comes to really him holding this, he really only has one hand to do the job. It's this hand right here. The other hand is just basically a relaxed palm. And I have to believe that these are the same hands that were used by Chucky at one point. But to take the chainsaw and fit it into his hand, because this isn't the most softest of plastic to have to deal with, nor is the chainsaw handle, you sort of have to take, I'm going to avoid trying to hit the button in the process, sort of have to get it in on a bit of an angle like this, feed it into the back of the hand, and then just sort of swing it around. This seems so much easier describing it than actually doing it, but yeah, just fit this around his hand. They clearly seem to have designed the chainsaw to accommodate hands that were already in place, because, as I said, like getting him in the hand to hold the chainsaw is not the easiest thing to do. It actually looks like he's picking it up like it has germs or cooties on it than he actually is wielding it. And then, of course, if you're trying to get the other hand to do the job of holding the top of the handle, good luck. Because that's about all you're going to be able to get. I mean, you can kind of rest his hand on top of it, but it really doesn't look like he's actually holding the handle of the chainsaw. So there's that. Or, I suppose what you could always do as well is just have the chainsaw up in the air like this. Him screaming, because that's what Leatherface does, and just sort of display the figure like this. There's always that option available as well. Taking the chainsaw out of his hand, now this figure does have sound effects. It seems to cycle through 3 different sound clips from the movie, which we'll talk about in a second. Don't want to get to that just yet. The first thing we have a look at, though, is his head sculpt. You know, for me, the MDS figures are sort of been hit or miss. Chucky I seem to be the hardest on, because when you're scaling a figure this size, Chucky falls close to the category of being the doll that he is from the movie. So with the MDS, they're sort of more stylized characters, so the Chuckies don't look the most realistic to the way they look in the movie. Leatherface, you can pull yourself away from that and sort of just see it as a more stylized looking Leatherface. And I think the resulting of that is actually it looks like a really fun looking figure to be putting on display. Of course, he does have his trademark leather face, his skin mask that he is wearing here. They even have the flaps, the little ears sticking out to the sides. Very bold stitch lines connecting the 2 halves of the skin together. Very large caterpillar-sized eyebrows. I really like the dark coloring of the brown that they use for the interior of the eyes, or the interior sockets of the skin mask. Nice large eyes also on Leatherface too. Not the skin mask, but on Leatherface. Really nice big eyes. They almost seem like they're slightly bloodshot. Very, very nice looking eyes. It's actually one of my favorite things about this figure is his eyes. Of course, he's got the more mangled looking teeth. His summer teeth, after all. Some are there and some are not. And then the texturing that they've done to the skin mask itself is very, very nice. It helps as well to his cause that they've washed a fair bit of additional brown over top of it. So those details on the face really do stand out. Perhaps I'm being a little easier on Leatherface, but it's because I know, like, Leatherface doesn't really look like this in the movie. Chucky has to be a little more closer because he looks like a doll. I don't know. Weigh your thoughts in, certainly down below. Seeing it certainly from the side, he has a really nice side profile going for him. The mask doesn't make his face underneath very much recessed. Doesn't give it a lot of depth, but it gives enough that it does certainly make it look like he's actually wearing a mask. I don't know why specifically he has brown up the top here. I mean, if that's to assume that this part of his skin mask is ripped open, I don't really understand why it's brown underneath, unless he just has not bathed for a while. And I can't imagine Leatherface has been taking a bath or shower in the immediate future or in the immediate past. I think it's been quite a while since he's actually touched water and soap. Despite that, we can spin it around so you can see this side. You can certainly see it from the back as well. I really like that little touch of detail as well, that they've kept the little end of the skin just sticking out from the bottom, but not enough that covers off the neck. This certainly does come things in handy when it comes to rotating the figure's head, because it doesn't have a lot of things in the way. Very nicely. And actually, you know what? That's a really nice looking hair as well that they've sculpted in there too. Nice looking face on MDS Leatherface. Of course, when it comes to the rest of his body, he's got the trademark items of clothing that he would have worn in the 74 film, the striped shirt. Clean for the most part. There are a few little areas, ring around the collar, and certainly dirt around the collar. Very, very dirty in the area around his neck. But the rest of the shirt actually stays pretty clean. Has his long apron. Again, no blood. I don't know what the ruling was, why they couldn't have used blood for MDS Leatherface, but sadly there's no blood anywhere found on this figure. It does have the trademark tie. It's a nice thick tie too. It doesn't feel like it's cheap in quality either. It looks like somebody actually would have had to take the time and done that tie, which wouldn't have been me. They would have been able to enlist my services. I don't even know how to tie a tie. I'm the type of person in the past that have used clipped-on ties or have just relied on friendly people to tie my ties for me. That's a little bit of secret information about me you probably didn't already know. He has the dark blue pants, and of course he does have the cowboy boots, which to the credit of Mezco, they actually have sculpted the boots further past the point of the cuff of the pants. I mean, really, you would have only seen... Fix that up. You would have only seen to about there, so they could have really just cheated and put the top of the cowboy boots right there. But actually, look further still, and actually the top of the boot is way up here. Very nicely done, the fact that they would have done that. Again, it's not a point where you would have been able to see it unless you lifted up the collar of the pants. I like the fact that even though he is probably using the same hands as Chucky, that at least they took the time to dirty up the nails and dirty up the fingers. So that's a nice little touch as well. We'll talk about the figure's articulation as well in a moment. And then, of course, the main thing I'm sure you guys will want to see is the sound effects. Now, he does have a button on the back of the figure. We just spin this around so you can see it. The one thing I've noticed, though, about Leatherface is it doesn't seem to have an accessible point where you can actually open this up and gain access to the batteries. I thought perhaps I would have just had to untuck his shirt, which may be the thing I may have to do. But it almost looks like the pants are sewn to the bottom of the shirt. So I really don't know how you're going to gain access to the battery compartment unless the Velcro is located on the fronts. There it is right there, which is a bit strange because then to access the batteries, it seems like you're going to have to undo this, maybe slide it off his shoulders to gain access to the battery compartment. And of course the switches. One good thing, at least for the switch, is you sort of can feel for it. At the top is the on, in the middle area is the off, and down below is the trial. If you have picked this figure up for yourself, it should cycle through 3 distinct sounds. If it doesn't, if it only cycles through the chainsaw sound and the screaming, then you have it set to try, which is the lowest button. You will want to bring it up to the highest point. And then from there, the access button is right there. Kind of hard to see it, but certainly is easy to feel it. And then from there, we can go ahead and cycle through his 3 different sounds. Pressing the first time. Now, it clearly sounds like that's Leatherface running, and he's sort of shrieking while he's doing it. You can kind of hear in the background a screaming of a young girl. Hitting the button again on the back, you have that familiar snapshot sound from the opener of the 74 film. I'm glad to see that they actually incorporated that. That would be one thing I think would have been really missed of an opportunity if they didn't include that with the figure. And then the last sound, still pressing that button again, which is again a little harder to get access to. There we go. And the last one, of course, being the starting of the chainsaw, which of course then plays more the role if you want to keep the chainsaw in his hand. It makes a little bit more sense that I'm sure he's not just making the sound effects with his mouth. Nice incorporating of 3 audio clips. And I guess they could have incorporated more, but I think it has the things that you would expect Leatherface to have. Revving on the chainsaw, check. Snapshot photo sound, check. Leatherface chasing some girl in the forest, and he's making noises while he's doing it. So check, check, check. He seems to have all the proper audio effects that I would want to see with the MDS Leatherface. Now let's have a look at the figure's posability. Well, if you have collected any of the MDS figures, so sort of know by now what limitations you're going to get with these figures. The head rotates, for starters, all the way around. A little harder, of course, because you've got so much hair happening here. But yeah, you can rotate the head all the way around. It hinges up, down, and you can also rock it back and forth as well to get that more confused-looking Leatherface. As for his arms hinge out, not fully at a 90-degree angle bend, mind you, only closer to being, that's about 45 degrees. The arms can also rotate all the way around. We'll be, of course, mindful that you're not hitting his head along the ways, but at least the shirt sleeve doesn't get wound up while you're doing it. He has also a swivel in the elbow area, and also a swivel in those hands, too. I mean, clearly that looks like they're using the Chucky arms for this. Probably the whole entire body. Legs swivel back and forth. They don't split out or anything like that. And just due to the way that they're attached to the figure's lower legs, the boots by default do have a rotation back and forth as well. So that's basically all the articulation that you're going to be getting with MDS Leatherface. Again, when I feel like it comes to this figure, maybe I'm a little easier going on this guy, because he's not a Chucky. Chucky, I always sort of feel like when we've looked at the Chuckies before from Mezco Toys of this MDS scale, I always feel like I'm a little harder on them. Maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe I should just adapt the idea that with the MDS style, they're all more stylistic designs of the characters, but because Chucky's, well, he's not 1-to-1 scale, but because he's just slightly shorter than that, I kind of want him to look a little bit more like he does in the movie. Leatherface, on the other hand, I mean, he doesn't look like this. Well, he looks somewhat like this in the movie, but he doesn't have this sort of over-deformed, super stylized design that the MDS brings to the table. Maybe because of that reason, and because I like the design of Leatherface too, I think I like this one just a little bit more than the Chuckies we've looked at in the past. Because I gotta believe that Mezco Toys did in fact use the same stock body as their Chucky releases in the past, one of the limitations that go along with that, especially for a character like Leatherface, is he really can't hold the chainsaw with both hands. They're still using that relaxed hand on the one side, and I really wish that they hadn't. If they had only swapped that out with a similar gripping hand to the one that's actually holding the one handle of the chainsaw, then at least effectively you would be able to have him holding the chainsaw with both hands. Instead, one hand is doing all the job, and then the other hand is sort of just resting on the handle. You can kind of convince yourself he's holding it with the other hand, but really he's not. He's just sort of patting like a small child on the head, congratulating them for a job well done. That's basically what that relaxed hand is doing. I love the look of this Leatherface, and I would certainly hope at some point we're going to get the pretty lady suited version of Leatherface in this same MDS style. The colors work quite well on them. I really do like also his style of face works really well with an oversized head on a slightly smaller body. And again, taking that core idea and then adding the pretty lady design of Leatherface from the 74 film to that, I really think you could have a really nice looking MDS. If only Mezco Toys will make that happen. What do you guys think of the MDS Texas Chainsaw Massacre Leatherface? Weigh your thoughts in. Let me know down below in the comments section. And certainly while you are here, you're here anyways. You're just, passing some time. Maybe you're in between your job, or maybe you're at job right now and you're just finding something to do because your afternoon's a little boring. Thank you for that. Thank you for wasting your time over on this channel. But if you certainly would like to waste more of your time on this channel and you haven't yet done so, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. Move on over as well. You can turn that bell notification on and make sure, yes, you're keeping your skin mask peepers peeled, because there will be, in fact, more Leatherface and Mezco reviews lined up and coming your way. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.